Last fall, NPR dismissed its top news executive following a damning story in the Washington Post where several women complained about the behavior of Michael Oreskes. Now, NPR is releasing a few details from an outside investigation into exactly what happened. Michael Oreskes took over at NPR in 2015, having worked at the New York Times and Associated Press, and he was a frequent guest on the talk show circuit.
When you make a mistake, you really must correct it quickly.
But that was advice NPR itself did not take. According to the findings of a recently released investigation, NPR was aware of Oreskes' reputation before they hired him. And, says NPR media critic David Folkenflik, NPR got more complaints soon after he was hired.
2 female NPR journalists filed complaints to HR, alleging he had engaged them over drinks and dinner in conversation that became intrusively personal. In at least one instance, he turned talk to sex.
And according to the report, Oreskes also turned in questionable expense accounts. He was warned, but not fired, until after the Washington Post reported the sexual complaints last fall. A delayed move NPR chief Jarl Mohn defended at the time.
There had been rumors circulating around the building here about his behavior. Rumors and gossip. We can't act on that. We have to act on facts.
While NPR's board of directors says it still has faith in Jarl Mohn, the company has another looming issue. Findings from the report say there is a culture at NPR that favors men. Well, first of all, I gave kudos to NPR for releasing this report, something that WBUR did not do in the Tom Ashbrook case. There were 2 reports done there, one about sexual behavior and one about bullying or tactical behavior. None of those were made public, and NPR I give credit to. However, you read that report and you realize that no one else is being held accountable, even though top executives within NPR knew before they hired Michael Oreskes and knew during the period, because he was hired in 2015, and right away some of these incidents started happening. So when they say the culture favors men, it's men protecting men, and we've seen this in virtually every single one of these cases, from Matt Lauer to Charlie Rose, straight on through.
Hearing Jarl Mohn say we couldn't act on rumors and gossip, we had to act on facts. Hearing him say that after reading the entire report.
The interview was done last fall.
The interview was done last fall. That characterization doesn't hold up. Top management at NPR, in some cases, including Mohn, in some cases he seems to have been protected from this information. They had much more than rumors and gossip to go on when it came to allegations that Mike Oreskes was not behaving the way he should be. And they chose to either look the other way or act in a very soft, ineffectual way. I would urge anyone who's interested in this to get the report. David Folkenflik linked to it on his piece. Yeah. It is incredibly damning. Among other things, they want an outside entity to come in and handle sexual harassment investigations as a way of rebuilding trust with management. I think when you're making a move like that, you've basically concluded that management can never regain the trust that they once had.
You know, the Jarl Mohn soundbite came from a very tough and uncomfortable interview that Mary Louise Kelly did with him after the Michael Oreskes story first broke. And I'll tell you, I'd say it's time for Jarl Mohn to sit down with Mary Louise Kelly again and ask some of these follow-up questions. I thought she did a terrific job the first time of holding him to account, but now we know much more about what Jarl Mohn knew and when he knew it. It's just really disturbing stuff. And this bit about a culture that favors men, you can really see it in the coverage of this. There's no way that Oreskes could have gotten away with this as long as he did in a culture that didn't somehow say, well, boys will be boys and Michael Oreskes will be Michael Oreskes.
Definitely.
When you talk about the culture, the thing I saw in the report that stood out to me is the fact that they apparently use a larger pool of freelancers, if you will, people who aren't full-time staff members. And so the thinking is that, well, because people are essentially day hires and they don't have contracts and really don't have any kind of protection, security, if you will, from HR, that they would be unwilling to step forward and report something, because then someone just says, okay, we don't need you to come back tomorrow, and they don't have to give a reason. And so that's something I don't know that I considered when you think of how news organizations in general tend to use a lot of freelancers. That could be one of the reasons why we see some of these things happening and they go unreported. Having said that, I thought that, coming out with a report like this, so comprehensive, it's transparent, perhaps it will help to regain trust from the public as well, and it's an open book for other organizations to look at it and say, you know what, let's use this as a teachable moment.
I think your point is an excellent one about so many part-timers there, the very fact that you're working as a day worker makes you so vulnerable to someone who has a personality clearly Michael Oreskes had, and I fully suspect that he recognized that and took advantage of that. The other area is this: the whole idea of Errol Moan's comment about rumors and allegations. Rumors and allegations are the starting point for good journalism. And you don't run with it, but that's where you start with it. And there was certainly information that was hard that they would have gotten right away. The expense account dinners with young women would certainly lead to a question about why a disproportionate number of young women are going out to dinner with you, Michael, and let's talk to those women. And I think before you know it, you would have found that story. So, if anything, Errol Moan disqualified himself for running a journalism organization.
I should remind everybody that Tom Fiedler was the editor of the Miami Herald when the infamous Gary Hart story broke. And if you hadn't followed those rumors, you would never have known. What was the name of the boat again?
The Monkey Business.
The Monkey Business.